Hello, my name is Shivam, and welcome back to the Singapore International Film Festival Youth Jury and Critic Program podcast.
And I'm Matthew. And today we're going to be talking about our experience at the festival and some films we liked that we saw.
So, let's talk about the short films we saw first that we had to judge.
So as part of the program, we had to watch the short films in the Southeast Asian Short Film Competition, 4 programs, and it was about 16 of them.
Yep, and it was around almost 6 hours of short films, and we watched on one day we watched 4 hours. So let's start off with what we like.
One of my favorites was Diary of Cattle by Lydia Afrolita and David Darmadi. It's kind of like a still life in a way of cows living in a trash heap in West Sumatra, Indonesia, and it just captures their life, what they do in the trash heap, how they try and live their life amidst this human degradation and chaos of our own design. It's really insightful, introspective, and really grand in scale. I was really impressed by how just expansive the trash looked and how impressive they made the footage. You can tell they shot it from day to night. I thought that was really amazing.
So my personal favorite film was probably Mary Mary by filmmaker Nelson Yeo. So Mary Mary is sort of a surrealist experimental film, but at the same time it's not. So it basically follows a lady called Ma Li in China who wishes of a new life. She basically is in a loveless marriage with someone she doesn't like, and she dreams of becoming a Western woman called Mary. And basically, the film isn't your traditional movie. It's all made out of archived footage, like archival footage from old films, and some extra stuff shot by Yo. And there's no acting in the sense that there's no voice acting. Everything is automated voices, which is really weird because we hear automated voices every day, but we don't really give them a character or personality. But Yo manages to get us invested in basically robots, which I thought was really, really interesting. And it's a really, it basically takes very familiar elements of films, things you've all seen before, but its execution is so interesting and so unique and so weird and wonderful that it makes for an incredible watch.
Yeah, and I think because a lot of us don't have that much exposure to experimental film, so I think it's a really good entry point to get into it.
So, another film I was a big fan of was something called The Dossier of the Dossier. Now, this one hit me particularly hard because I'm a filmmaker as well. So, the concept of trying to get funding or being rejected from a festival or like a cinema market, that's something I've dealt with before. It's directed by Sorayos Prapapan. I'm so sorry for butchering your name, Mr. Prapapan. And basically, it's about a director and a producer who are trying to get funding for the film, and they meet this really strange sort of rich person.
Yeah.
And they're basically just trying to deal with the crisis that is trying to get funding for your film. And I found it's really meta, as a certain previous podcast mentioned.
It's a lot of the Charlie Kaufman type meta stuff we're so used to today about dissecting the process, making movies about movies. It's really interesting.
But also, it is fairly funny. It's a genuinely funny movie. It has heart to it. You actually care about the characters. And it also makes fun of the black and white sort of thing a lot of artistic short films do.
I think the biggest laugh that we got as youth jury was the scene where he's Googling what directors look like in their pictures.
Oh, yeah.
And he just
Wong Kar-wai.
Googles Wong Kar-wai.
With the sunglasses. Yeah, that was pretty funny.
That was great. Another short film we really liked was I'm Not Your Effing Stereotype. I think everyone knows what the F word is. It's a really ultra modern approach to the coming of age story. It's about a young girl named Miriam who's displaced in Thailand because of terrorist acts happening in her home village, but she herself is a Muslim, and so she has to contend with this tension between the perception of Muslims from the outside and the rampant Islamophobia and her own sense of her own identity. And it's done with a really unique visual style with social media messages coming out, this circular aspect ratio that moves in and out, and some really like cool licensed music. Like they
Yeah.
have MGMT, Sophie,
MIA.
and MIA.
And then, I'm a big fan of the way they use Instagram stories as a fun tool. And it's a very relevant film. It's really funny. It's well acted. Its production value is really good. It's obviously had a clear budget behind it because they managed to get like genuinely popular songs that we've actually heard of. And I definitely think it's definitely worth checking out. Yeah, it's something that's very needed in our time today, and it's just a blast from start to finish.
I think we'd be remiss not to mention Stay Awake, Be Ready, Pham Thien An, and another Vietnamese film called Sweet Salty
And salty.
by Duong Du Lin. They're both really excellent on a technical level. We can talk about Stay Awake first. It takes place entirely in a single shot on a busy street corner at night. And the way it deals with conflict is incredible. How every frame, you can tell there's something outside of it going on, but you never are shown it. So you get this subconscious understanding of this constant conflict around them, but it's portrayed in such a clever way.
And one thing I like about the film is if you look in the background, there's always another story going on. So while you're focusing on our main story, there's like 4 or 5 others going on at the same time. And the film tells you this. They say, stay awake, be ready. It's almost like saying to the audience, hey, keep alert. You got to watch out for all the clues. Everything will build up. And you also got to watch out because there's other stories going on within the story. I thought it was really clever. I thought the cinematography was really, really good. And the last shot has really stuck with me for some reason. And I thought it's really a well shot film. And one thing I have to say, from all the festival short films I've seen, this has the best sound design. You really get immersed in the film. Like, everything is so natural, and everything, like the non-diegetic music, everything just comes together so well. And it's really a highlight of the festival, and it's a great piece of Bayesian realism filmmaking.
Another one that we really loved was Sweet Salty by Duong Du Lin, another Vietnamese film. I think what struck me first on the film wasn't so much its themes, but it came on it really appeals to your senses about taste, about touch, about feeling. It's a very tactile film, and it really gets you to understand the experience of the characters. But I think if you dig deeper into the themes, you really get this interesting ideas about femininity, motherhood in Vietnamese society, men, especially because the thing about the film is that men aren't really portrayed in such a large role as they're implied to. So you're implied that this woman is facing the threat about her husband coming, but you never see her husband, but yet his presence always is over the frame, and that really speaks to our sort of patriarchal society. And I feel that out of all the films that actually kind of expanded my view of things that I hadn't seen in a way before, it was Sweet Salty. Because especially something like Diary of Cattle, I already know about commodification, I already know about the devaluation of life, but in Sweet Salty, it opened me up to new perspectives about the way women have to deal with society and the expectations around them, which I, as a man, would have never.
I also have to say, the way it balances comedy and drama is really good. And the acting is one of the strongest I've seen at the festival. Every performance, whether it be a side character or the main lead, everything was just all firing on all cylinders. I particularly liked the cinematography. The first and final shots are really clever, and the way they connect is really interesting. And again, the final shot really stays in my mind, and it has some really good jokes. There are some hilarious jokes that had me laughing, but also thinking about our society as a whole.
And I think we should also mention Piece of Meat by Gerald Chong, a local Singaporean film.
This is probably if I'm not mistaken, the only stop motion film of our short.
The only animated film. Too.
Yeah, it's the only animated film, and I kind of loved it. It's it's really funny. If you sort of like puns or just like cultural
visual
jokes,
humor too.
Yeah,
cultural jokes.
You'll have fun with it. Like some hilarious jokes was like a durian not being allowed on the bus, for example, or like just how funny fruit and vegetable are. And I never found myself laughing at a banana before.
And I feel it has a lot to say about income inequality in Singapore. That's really interesting if you have to unpack it. But it's on such an accessible level that I think it's really good to get as a way to get audiences to actually think about these issues.
It's an extremely layered film. And like Matt said, it does discuss income inequality, the exploitation of maybe the lower class citizens of Singapore, and as well as just like the sort of issues that are prevalent in Singapore, and how there are just some like rules in Singapore that really make no sense, and how
Okay, so next we can talk about the films we really loved seeing at the festival.
so one film the
We
entire
both saw.
Yep. So one film, pretty much a lot of the youth
Everyone
we
saw,
went
yeah.
to was The Lighthouse by Robert Eggers, and it was an amazing experience. You know, everyone got together, we all sat down, we watched the film, and oh boy, just
It burned a hole right through my soul. By the end of it, I was so stressed. You could tell everyone was visibly shaken
yeah.
discussing it. Oh my gosh.
After the film, we all crowded around and we just sort of laughed for like 2 minutes, unable to actually muster up words. No film has done that to me. That was truly an experience I'll never forget. And one of the best performances of the year, definitely from Patterson and Defoe.
And Defoe.
He used to be the friend, now he's Defoe, sadly.
Oh, and he used to be Edward from Twilight, but now he's
That guy from Good Time.
our daddy.
And I have to say, the cinematography is extremely just timely, in the sense that you really feel like you're transported back to like the 40s or 20s almost. And the shot on gorgeous film, the black and white aesthetic really works, and the aspect ratio is just complements everything really well. Mark Coven's score for the film was also very solid, and it's clear Robert Eggers put a lot of thought into this project, and even the dialogue and dialects.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about the dialogue. They speak in these thick New England accents. I remember like Mika told me like, oh, Robert Eggers, make a film, you don't need subtitles to watch challenge. I thought it was so funny because like you really couldn't pick up on a lot of things they were saying.
Apparently at some screenings they did have subtitles, but sadly we did not get them.
Really?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the themes and ideas of The Lighthouse are so primal. Like, they don't really speak to, like, timely societal issues, but very ones that have lasted as long as, like, man have been, you know, trying to find meaning in the world. It's about young versus old. It's about master versus slave. It's about all these really basal emotions, and it's really, really
It's very
interesting.
raw. It's an
Very raw.
extremely raw film. And what's funny is, on like the outside, you could say, oh, it's the very average art house or Oscar bait movie. It's a period piece with like actors trying to
They
like
shout at each other.
they're shouting, acting. It's shot in black and white, and it's a period piece, and like it's old, and like you have like a famous old actor and a young actor trying to not be like a tween heartthrob, and I'm like, no. It's honestly an anti-Oscar bait film almost, because there are some stuff that I'm telling you you won't see in some sort of like Tom Hooper or Cats. You're not going to see that in Cats. Well, I hope not.
Hey, speaking of actors shouting at each other, another film I saw at the festival that I think is one of my favorites of the year is Marriage Story. And Shivam didn't get to see it, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
it's really incredible. I'm a big fan of Noah Baumbach, and I think that this might be one of his finest films. It really goes along with all of his sensibilities, the really goofy humor, the really specific character types, and really directs it all towards a very potent emotional understanding of these characters. And like Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, they give like the best performances of the year, in my opinion. Like if Adam Driver doesn't win an Oscar and if he loses to like a clown, I'll be pissed.
So, we also saw Les Miserables.
Oh.
Sorry. So we saw Les Miserables, which is a French film by Lajli.
Lajli.
And it takes place around in the same area of the book.
Oh, the same
Place where it was
neighborhood,
written, yeah.
Victor Hugo grew up in, and the same neighborhood where Laj grew up in himself.
And it's a really gritty and morally grey story about basically 3 police officers who are part of the anti-crime unit
Oh.
in Paris, and they're just trying to get through the day. One of them is a new recruit who moved from the country so he can be in Paris with his son, and it's something that left me shaken almost, to be honest, because it's incredibly nuanced and incredibly sort of ethically grey, because Laj basically he puts the viewer in the middle of the situation but doesn't put the viewer on a side. Even I don't feel Laj took a side in this film, because the cops, certain people, certain members of the police force are awful, but then you also have other people in the general public who are also really just as bad almost. So he really allows us, the viewer, to decide, and almost all the main characters are very morally grey, and there's quite a range of personalities in our three leads, and it's one of the most interesting police brutality films I've seen recently, and it actually beat out Portrait of a Lady on Fire for
for the Oscar submission. Oh, that was controversial.
Yeah,
I'm sure
Cha Wei
everyone
was sorry.
Loves that decision.
Yeah, especially our good friend Cha Wei from Youth Critic Program.
Honestly, I think they submitted it for the Oscars because it was a very modern view of France that maybe international audiences aren't as accustomed to. Like, we always think about like the Eiffel Tower, the Parisian cafes, Amélie. No, but like it's all about the kebab shops. It's all about the low income neighborhoods. It's all about what these kids spend their time doing, how these neighborhoods are run. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, like regard. Stuff like if you go watch I don't know, like a Woody Allen film about Paris.
Oh, you shouldn't do that.
You'll see like fancy, like Matt said, fancy cafes, people on bikes with baguettes. And this, you'll see gritty kebab shops, kids playing football, counterfeit markets.
Yeah.
So it's a really like a different look at modern day Paris and France in general, and it's about a country that it's still in the euphoria of winning the World Cup, but at the same time, it's on the brink of collapse.
Is it?
I mean,
in the film?
In the film it is. I hope not. I hope people in France are okay, I guess.
You want to talk about Bombay Rose?
Yep. So I saw an animated film called Bombay Rose by Gitanjali Rao, and I thought it was really, really fun, and I really, really liked it. So, it basically is about a few people in modern day Bombay in India, and it's an animated film about basically like about romance and their relationships, and I thought it was a really nice and cute film. The animation and the art style I feel is pretty solid, especially the art style. It was really visually unique, and it's unlike any animated film I've seen before, and I can't wait to see that the director work on other animated films, because it's clear that the art style is very visually pronounced and very fresh. I thought the story was very relevant. It discusses some issues like what's going on in Kashmir. It discusses issues like what's happening with sort of Indian immigration into Dubai, class issues, income issues, racism, religious sort of inequality in India, and it does it without feeling forced. There's an incredible amount of nuance to Gitanjali Rao's film, and honestly, it also managed to pay homage to Bollywood cinema and classic Bollywood cinema really well, and that I thought was really nice. You'll watch this film and you'll leave it happy, but even though it's one of the more melancholic films I've seen of the festival, and I can't wait to see what other films Gitanjali Rao does next. And I thought the music was also quite good in the film, and the voice acting as well, sound design. For a fairly low budget animated film in a world dominated by CGI animation, Pixar, Disney, this really stood out to me, and I hope this film does well, and I hope people support it.
If you don't remember, support independent animation, support animation for adults, support animation that doesn't just regard as a genre for kids, or else these people will be working on Angry Birds 3.
Please don't make it. I don't want to watch Angry Birds 3. Please.
Yeah, you have to.
Frozen 5 coming to the cinema near you.
Frozen 5, Olaf's Revenge.
Emoji Movie 2. 2 Emoji, 2 Furious.
Yeah. So I think we can get on to talking about what we did as part of the Youth Jury program as a whole. So over the past 3 weeks or so, 3 weekends or so, we've been going through a lot of like talks. It's not just about judging the short films, but also getting really a holistic view of the film industry in Singapore, and just the different professionals, different jobs you can have in it. So I think on the first day we had a really interesting talk by
Experimental filmmaker and
uh,
local film enthusiast Toha Ping.
He showed us his experimental film
Dance of the
Dance
Humble
of a Humble
Atheist.
It was really, really interesting. It was a silent film comprised of a stop motion of these porcelain like tablets with
Yep.
like perforated holes in it. So it was like a real trypophobia vibe
Yeah.
where you see the holes opening, closing, you see the colors changing. It was really, really disorienting.
And visceral. It was extremely visceral, and there's a lot of flashing lights. Or also, if you have epilepsy, please don't see the film just for your safety. But yeah, it was very disorienting, very visceral, and yeah, it was truly just, I don't know, it was something else. I haven't experienced anything
And
like that before.
I just really love seeing his passion, honestly. The way he talks about things, you can tell this is his life. This is what he loves to do. And I just hope that in the future our industry will be able to support people like him.
Yeah, and what's also really important is that he really cares about the Singaporean cinema history. He told us about so much, and it was crazy to think that this little island that we live on actually is home to so many film locations. And yeah, that was really eye-opening, and I thought it was just really awesome to meet him.
Yeah, we also had a talk by the Asian Film Archive. It was really, really cool seeing how they like managed to restore these films they found. I remember they showed us this picture of this one film reel. They kept it in a plastic bag, and because like film reels need air, when you took it out, it was like a black sludge.
Oh yeah, it was like tar. It was
It was like
kind of gross, but it was really interesting to see how important archiving cinema is, and even digital cinema today is at threat. Our digital films are in jeopardy because of changing codecs, changing formats, everything. Yeah, cinema almost is being threatened. So we have to support our archives like Asian Film Archive. And now I'm kind of worried my films will die out, so I got to send them my films soon. We also met the brilliant Straits Times critic Jean-Louis.
Jean-Louis? He gave us a really, really interesting, I think,
Yeah.
informative talk about writing reviews for a wide audience and like how his process is in doing it. And he discussed with us two films that we saw, Diary of Cattle and Piece of Meat, and really brought a new perspective to it that I think
Yeah.
a lot of us didn't see before. I think that was really cool.
Yeah, after the John Louis talk, I actually had a lot more appreciation for Diary of a Cow, because at first, I feel like I took it at face value too much. I didn't look into it too much, but after the John Louis discussion, I really appreciate that film a lot more. And we also talked about just the Singapore entertainment industry in general.
Speaking of the Singapore entertainment industry, we also visited somewhere that plays a very important role for post-production of many local productions, and that is Mokuchai Laboratories, headed up by Chai Yi-wei.
It was pretty damn awesome going to Mokuchai, especially for me, because I have an interest in post-production
Yeah.
and color grading and sound design. And it's crazy to see that we saw one monitor worth 45,000, and that was the truest 4K I've seen in my life.
He said only on that screen the blacks will look black, and that is the only monitor of that type in Singapore.
The only one in Singapore. And also it was really interesting. We got more of an insight on how films are color graded, how sound design is done for films, because that is something overlooked often by
Yeah.
most people when they're watching a film. No one really realizes that this raw film is sort of taken, and they have to basically add the finishing touches of sound design and the color grading, which is actually really integral to all the films we like. It really adds style to all the movies.
And I want to talk about, he's a filmmaker himself, Chai Yi-wei. We watched one of his short films called Sister. You can watch it online as part of the 15 shorts on Giving.sg. I just want to mention that because I thought it was really incredible.
Yeah, it was really, really something. It was definitely something worth checking out, and we'll put a link below.
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. You have no excuse.
Okay, we also got to talk about film distribution by
By Mr. Lim Tech, who runs
of
Clover Films. Clover Films is a distribution company that distribute films like Shoplifters and Parasite.
Everyone loves Parasite. I love
And
Parasite.
the new film from the Shoplifters director called The Truth.
Yeah, he told us a lot of interesting like tidbits and facts about how films are distributed in Singapore. And one fun fact he told us was that the Eric Koo film Ramante was only seen by 20,000 Singaporeans, but
200,000 French people saw it. So, Singaporeans, what are you doing?
why are you going to see Ramante?
Eric Koo is sad. Apologize to Eric
No,
Koo.
the French, only the French truly understand
Singaporean.
Singapore. So yeah, what's the excuse? The French saw Ramante.
Why didn't you?
Yeah, why didn't you?
Yeah, come on, man. Watch it, man. Support Singapore.
We also had some talks by some film writers, like Natalie Ng, who writes her film in Ether, and Kelly Liao, who used to be editor at Movie Maker magazine. I think that really gave us a lot of good insight into like the writing process and journalism in general, because I remember Kelly Liao gave us a really, really interesting talk about interviews and like how you should structure it, what you should ask, and how you should bargain for more time. And that's really something I didn't like know before, so I thought it was really cool.
And was also really insightful with the Kelly Liao talk was how to sort of grasp your audience in, how to get the audience to actually, read what you're writing, and how to basically be an effective opener, and how to properly structure, and how to sort of the visual aesthetic of an article, for example. And that was really interesting, actually, because while I do write a lot of articles, I never thought of it in that sort of sense.
And Natalie Young also gave us a really insightful talk about film journalism in its state today, and I'm sure it's filmed in Ether, and she showed us a lot of really cool articles and video essays she did. I particularly really loved the video essay she had about the use of gloves in Handmaiden. We should link that below.
Yep, will do. And the talk and video essays really did inspire me to actually make my own video essay for the festival, and it's now something I really want to explore. And it's one thing that's really interesting about sort of Natalie Young and Film Beneath is the talk that really are putting emphasis on Asian voices in cinema.
Yeah.
Especially films by Asian women
Asian women
directors.
directors,
and
like House of Hummingbird.
It's what they're doing, I feel, is extremely important. And they're also giving insight to foreign audiences, because a lot of the time Asian cinema is definitely overlooked. But Filmed in Ether is really giving insight and saying, hey, not all Asian films are all, the same thing.
Old Boy, and then the stabby,
Yeah.
blood spurt,
Depressing violence. You can have really fun sort of Japanese musicals. You can have comedies. You can have a lot of variation. But I don't feel the international audience is seeing that. And people like Filmed in Ether are really, really helping these filmmakers out. And I think it's something we should all support.
And Film Ether is based in Australia, so yeah, that's pretty cool. We also visited the I would say best movie theater in Singapore.
Yep, and also the only sort of independent cinema in Singapore, and it's the Projector.
If you didn't already know, if you don't know, I don't know why you're listening to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's the independent cinema in Singapore. And we basically, a lot of us visit it very often, or fairly often, because they're the ones that do the Q&A screenings at directors. They show the more obscure foreign films. But none of us really took a step back and saw what was going on behind the scenes and how everything happens, how they make the programs, how they get the films, what they do. And we spoke with Jerome Chi, who was one of the program managers, and it was extremely insightful, actually, because he basically showed us, like, the projector of the projector.
Yeah.
We also got to learn some about history, and sadly, there could be a chance that the projector is vanishing due to the sale of Golden Mile Tower. So please do support the projector, because they, if you ask me, they are really important in keeping independent cinema alive in Singapore, and people who run it are really awesome. And what was really interesting was the history of the projector, how it was almost crowdfunded to a certain extent.
Yeah. They bought the two projectors they had were bought by the public. We also had a lot of very insightful sessions with our mentor, Kong Rithdi, who runs the Thai Film Archive,
as well as writing for the Bangkok Post. And what was funny was our first meeting with him was basically a 1 hour ramble on Joker.
Discussion about Joker, about how different people can view a film differently. and how these polarizing films can strike a chord with the audience in ways that you don't really expect or understand. Really dissecting, I guess it acts as a very good case study of the film criticism in general.
And yeah, his comments and his ideas he shared with us were really insightful. And also, he talked to us about how we can apply our own background onto our reviews. For example, he talked about how his Hangover 2 review was very popular for him because he gave his Thai perspective on it. And he's urging, and I do feel what he said was very important, we have to apply our own context, our own visions, and our own ideas onto our reviews. We have to make our readers connect with us as reviewers, therefore they can see our point of view a lot better. And this advice was some of the best I got the entire program.
Art doesn't exist in a void. If you complain about anything being too political, you're just not very smart. You're just not looking into it deeper. A shout out to Wei Tia, Sion, Shalom, all these lovely people that have helped us along this journey.
And if you are considering to applying to the Youth Critic Jury program, definitely go for it. It was such a fun experience. You'll make new friends, and you're gonna go watch fun movies with them. Like watching Lighthouse with all my festival buds was one of the best cinema experiences I've had this year.
And you can watch for free.
Yeah, you can see movies for free, but we didn't tell you that. And the main deliberation for the best short film.
It took like 2 hours. It wasn't that long actually.
But yeah, but what's really good is there's a lot of healthy debate and discussion going on. Everyone is so respectful and supportive of each other and everyone's opinions. And honestly, it's a really, really great place for youths that want to discuss film with other youths. And honestly, it was a great, I'm so happy I signed up for it because I met so many great people. I learned so many great things. And it was overall just a really great time. So I want to thank everyone who worked with me and Matt on the youth jury program, all our other youth jury members. It was really great.